Okay, so this is what we get in this morning from the electricity sector. A co-electricity distribution company via tweet a few minutes ago said there has been a total system collapse of the TCN, that's the transmission company of Nigeria's national grid, as confirmed by NCC. Noshobo says massive efforts have been ongoing to effect repairs and restore supply. For now, a co-electricity distribution company says all their substations and station supply, but restoration has commenced, apologizing to millions of customers. That's one big story this morning. TCN, National Grid, total system collapse and outage across the country. That's what we have early today. But again, this is coming through as we are also getting inflation data showing a better reading year on year, but the month-on-month numbers look a little bit on the upside. Let's bring in Adimo Kwesa to give us the first word on this as we get this hot off the press. Good morning. This is the big story.
It is.
And we've been waiting for it. The forecast from FDC was about 11.2%, which is in line with what we saw this morning.
Yes, indeed, yes, indeed. Inflation now has declined in 4 out of the past 6 months. This is certainly be welcomed by policymakers. What this means is that policies that the CBN has implemented in the last couple of months can be considered as successful, and it certainly provides justification for the CBN to move to lower the MPR by 50 basis points last month. I think a combination of factors contributed to this decline in inflation. We have lower food prices across board, less money in circulation, and power output was very much stable in the month of March. So that contributed to the decline in inflation. But the risks, the outlook is not looking so rosy. We have the start of the planting season. Power supply has declined drastically. It's now about 3,400 megawatts, and it's likely to decline further. We have this minimum wage settlement and also the Easter festivities. So it's likely that inflation would reverse this trend in coming months.
The central bank actually says they're looking at May as the beginning of an inflation uptick till August. That was what we heard at the last MPC by Godwin Emefiele. So this looks like technically the end of inflation soft landing, and that uptick could start happening from May. Maybe when we're done with the month of April. So we should take this on board, but I'm sure that this will have implications for consumers. If you look at the urban and rural inflation, month on month, the figures look a little bit. Food inflation is up slightly, 0.88% on month-on-month basis. Yes, year on year looks good, but again, month on month, if you do 30-day calculation, inflation is actually trending higher.
Yes, indeed.
Albeit very slowly.
Yes, indeed. Food prices are likely to continue increasing. We also have the Ramadan season coming in May, which typically
after the Easter holiday,
food prices rise. So the hope is that inflation will really rise, inch up by a small amount. That is the hope, not by large amounts. But it is expected that inflation should rise significantly in coming months, should rise consistently in coming months. Yes.
Okay, so if we tie that to the power situation, electricity, and we're just getting into the beginning of the rainy season, as it were, heavy rainfall, which could help our geothermal power plants and all of that.
Yes.
Any likelihood that power supply will move up? Look at this news just coming through this morning that the TCN, the power grid, the system collapse happened. And this is not good news, as it were, to look at Egbe power station there, based on your, and Olorun Shogo reporting significant gas constraints all the way from sources down in Niger Delta.
Yes, indeed. What else when you thought power was turning a corner in March? It reached a peak. On-grid power would reach a peak in March, about 4,600, 700 megawatts. Now it has reversed, and the major constraints is gas constraints. But if you look at the point on our goodies, we have SEPLA to NNPC. They are planning to raise 700 million for a joint gas project, which would hopefully be in operation in 2020, 2021. So that should at least alleviate those gas constraints.
Okay, so if you look at this inflation calendar, then for consumers, when inflation begins to trend higher from May, if that happens according to the projections of the Monetary Policy Committee, what do you think that will mean for consumers? What do you think that will mean for the Naira? Some folks believe that all of this will put some pressure on the currency moving forward, no matter how slight that will be. sometime by the middle of the year, maybe June, July.
Yes, conventional wisdom suggests that Naira should come under pressure in the second half of the year. If another point on our list, our reserves are $44.7 billion, but if we discount all our debt swaps and all the cash call arrears, the net reserves is actually lower. The NNPC, the news circulating this morning, the NNPC has paid 1.5 billion to IOCs, but 3.5 billion is still outstanding. The IMF in its Article 4 review said that Nigeria's debt swaps amount to about $6 billion. If you combine that $6 billion plus that $3.5 billion, take it out from the 44.7, and net reserves is actually $35 billion. That gives us an import cover about 5-6 months, which is not a very comfortable level, to be frank. So it means that but the most important thing is our reserves are trending upwards. Our reserves are trending
We're
upwards.
living on the edge.
We're living on the edge, yes.
The standard reserve coverage is about 21 months, thereabout.
Yes.
Technically, it should be about 21 months.
Yes, that's right.
Thereabout.
Yeah, but I think the most important thing is that
But oil prices,
prices are still steady.
A little bit slightly elder than but it's still around $70,
yes,
$90.
And a lot of money has come into the country post-election. So I think about $5 billion, $6 billion. Advanced economies.
That was in the first quarter, thereabout. We don't have the figures as we start in April, so we don't know if the FPIs is still that very heavy. Now we're done with the elections, and everyone is waiting for the president and his team to give us a cabinet and what have you. So we need to track what the portfolio inflows.
Yes.
Look at the stock market,
yes.
Really, and you look at the market, just bouncing around the floor, trying to look for a breakout.
That is true.
And that tells you that, look, investors are still not comfortable with, they don't have a sense of clarity yet as to where their administration go. About 2 months after the end of the elections, no name has been on the street as to who's the finance minister, whether you retain in the current cabinet, you're going to change them.
Yes, but yeah, like you said, we're living on the edge. So I think the most important thing is that we be very cautious with what we're doing. We not do anything that would take off this path of economic recovery. So let's just be cautious and implement the right. Let's politics go away from the situation and let the economy be at the forefront.
Okay, so what else is in the? If we look at the agro products, what's the focus for the week?
Beans, cowpea production. Cowpeas are commodity in focus today. We have Nigeria as the largest producer of cowpea today, and although we should be proud of our cowpea production, one significant constraint is that beans or cowpea is very susceptible to diseases and pest incidences. It is one of the most susceptible, vulnerable crops to disease and pest incidences at every stage of its life cycle. So that is something that we should consider if we want to boost our production. Our production is currently about 3.4 million tons, but we have a potential to produce roughly about 6.5 million tons. So what we need to do is invest in those disease-resistant crops and high-yielding crops so that we can boost our production.
Pesticides and things like that.
Exactly, yes.
A very big story for cowpea production. At least we're scoring big in that.
Yes.
Thank you, Adim Okosa. We appreciate it. A member of the economic think tank at Financial Derivatives Company. Now, what's in our news box? Quite a lot of big stories there, which we'll talk about when we come back after the break.